It, right now, is Thursday, which means only one thing. It's Linux Thursday here on the Lunduke Show, and I am joined by the indefatigable, which is apparently a word, Matt Hartley. Hello, Matt.
Hello, everybody. Aziz.
If you haven't joined the show before, quick shmoomeal. People ask us questions. They use a hashtag called Linux Thursday, and we answer the questions. That's the whole deal. That's the whole structure. We have no planning around this. Matt, how much time do we spend right before the show planning around which questions we were going to take?
I forgot I was doing this until 10 minutes ago. So, I really put a lot of emphasis on this.
That's what they call realism. This is basically reality TV right here.
I'm so sorry.
It is brought to you in part by the good folks at Lulzbot. They make that really radical 3D printer right back there. In the screenshots above, they make those two 3D printers. I showed this in a couple of my other episodes, but yeah. It's really rad. Awesome. Hold on, let me pull this up here so you can see a little closer. This is a Lulzbot Mini. But printed. It wasn't even printed on a Lulzbot printer. A fan of the show and a friend of mine saw my Lulzbot Mini back there, and he's like, I'm going to use my 3D printer to print you a friend. So here's my Lulzbot Mini with their little tiny octopus. You see him there? That's a tiny version of this cool. Dude.
That's really tiny.
Printed on that. Guy. So now I've got a micro Lulzbot Mini to sit on my Lulzbot Mini and keep my Lulzbot Mini company. That's just awesome. That's
a lot of mini. It's a lot of Lulzbot.
Yeah, it's a lot of Lulzbot. It's like Lulzbot Inception. It's awesome.
Yes.
All right. Let's get to the questions. We've got some good ones. All right.
Serious stuff.
All right. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom because you guys have been going nonstop, and I feel like the people who ask the questions first should get to be first in line. I think that's just the way it should go. All right. John Nordberg, you were the very first person to ask a question. You asked like 4 of them in a row. I'm going to pick one of them. He's asking a power management question.
Okay, I've got some thoughts there.
So he's asking specifically, he wants to know, how do I get my Dell Optiplex 990 fans under control with Arch? And a few other people had some battery life questions. I feel like those are kind of all related together.
They are, yeah. Well, when it comes to usually, and a lot of times when you have like 11.0 or an Apple computer or something like that, when it comes to in Linux, usually you have pre-packaged an installable package that's available that you can install to handle the fan stuff. At least it is true for Mac anyway, and I assume it probably is for your computer as well. As far as power consumption is concerned, so you're going to want to basically Google around for that because I have no idea what it would specifically be for your type. As far as I would say there's 2 things you can do. TLP is always installed. Any laptop that runs Linux, I always install TLP. It's just the way to go.
TLP
does a lot of stuff automatically. If you want to kind of see what's going on, you can go PowerTop. You can actually go so far as to actually save a PowerTop configuration you like. So once you've disabled what you want, you can do that. I don't necessarily recommend it because it's kind of a brick and mortar way of going about it. It's a little intense, but I do think TLP is good.
They're mortar.
The bricks are bad, but yeah, cool. TLP. I think TLP is where you want to be. And do your model a laptop, and then do fan control, and then Arch, and you'll probably find some answers there. So.
It's delightful. Everything that Matt just said is accurate and true.
Absolutely.
You get one more question, John Nordberg, because you asked. I scrolled up and I'm like, he asked 4 questions. I'm like, no, he didn't. John Nordberg kept going. All right, John. You also asked, my coworker, he dual boots Shutter.
Oh, no.
Should I stone him or just publicly humiliate him? So he's dual booting, I'm assuming Windows and Linux. I'm assuming it's not Mac and Linux, but I don't have any information about that.
At least there's the firmware excuse.
I like that John only gives 2 options, that he's going to humiliate him or stone him. You either murder him in a brutally biblical way, or you just humiliate him. Apparently those are the only options.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
What between those options, what does he do? And then if you had other options, what would you do?
So he's asking me, hey, I dual boot. Are you going to beat me to death with rocks or humiliate him? Is that what
he says he has a coworker that does that, though I don't know. I think I'm kind of thinking that's on the line of I'm asking for a friend, wink, wink.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, I think you're right. Honestly, I think humiliation has better lasting value. It's
if you
stone
like the man, he's dead.
On a Kardashian is going to humiliate you and put you on public display, and really make a big to do out of you. a Klingon's just going to battle you upside the head, and then all the fun's over. So, I think humiliation's the way to go.
I gotta say though, I have more respect for Klingons than Cardassians, just as a general rule of thumb.
Sure.
I find the Cardassians
where
to
they
be
stand.
backstabby and kind of annoying, whereas the Klingons are awesome. I mean, the Klingon food, don't get me wrong, looks disgusting, but otherwise, you gotta respect where they come from.
That is true.
Maybe.
It is kind of weird how their spine kind of continues up through their forehead, but once you get past that,
but only in some shows.
This is true. Fair enough. That's a whole other discussion.
And I know there's an explanation for it, but I don't buy it because it sounds stupid. And I love Star Trek and everything about it, but the
Enterprise.
Dumb.
I'm sorry. What? Anyway, go ahead.
No, and then there's the Discovery problems. The current.
I don't even care. I don't watch this.
That's not this show. That's a different show that I don't even produce. That the anger will just flow from
humiliation or stoning.
Humiliation or stoning. I go humiliation. I don't advocate for murder, whether it's with rocks or not. It's just a public stance I take. I know it's crazy. How about this? Okay. Just say, hey, maybe don't do that. that's the way I go. Just
what you do is you lean in really close and you go like that randomly,
nice.
just with no explanation or context.
I've also had really good luck with the very straightforward shame, I know your name. That works really well. Everyone likes that one a lot, especially when you do it like for the 5th or 6th time in a single day. Just keep it going. Keep it going nonstop.
And if you're in a time pinch, you could just thermite his computer. Problem solved. You can't run Windows on something that's melted. So
we're getting quickly back into the violence realm as quickly as possible.
Smashies. Okay.
Allow us to move on to a new topic. Grant, also known on Twitter as Grant somebody. Cool. I have never met me a Slackware user. That's fair. I have been into Linux for a few years. Is Slackware practically dead? This is fair. Do you know any current Slackware users?
His handle is the Nocturnal Slacker. And which actually, kind of, if you think about the fun there, it kind of works. Slacker,
it works. I like that.
Yeah, the guy is let's just say he's a biker. So he's not someone you would identify as a Linux person walking down the street. You would probably think, wow, he probably could clean my clock if he wanted to. Pretty big dude. But I think that there are other people like him. So he's not the only Slackware user that I know. There are a few others, but I do think that it is definitely something more of a graybeard kind of environment that people are grown into. A little bit like moss or, that stuff you need Tilex for in your bathtub.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So I reached out on the Slackware side of things. I wanted to get Patrick Volkerding, the guy behind Slackware, on the show for a long time, because Patrick is, there's some big people that we talk about a lot in the Linux world. There's Linus and Richard Stallman and a lot of big names, Matt Hartley, just these luminaries, right? Yeah. But Patrick Volkerding, he has produced the oldest and longest running Linux distro there is. There were some before that. Not a lot, but there were some before that, but none of them are currently in existence. Like their offspring is stuff that eventually became SUSE, did exist, but it was totally different back then, and all sorts of things. But Patrick created Slackware, and it's still alive. And that blows me away, because when he started making Slackware Linux, it was way before Linux was 1.0.
Right.
Like, he dove right into that, and you could get Slackware and rock with it forever. And I got to get that guy on the show. And they were kind of into it a little bit, and then they backed out, and then they just kind of disappeared. And I thought maybe Patrick is dead. Turns out he's still alive. It's just like Slackware. But that's the same conversation that you have with people from Slackware and Slackware itself is, are they dead? Right. No, turns out they're alive. That's cool that they're still alive, and I hope they live a long time. I think Slackware is cool just because of how long it is cool. Around.
It is very
forever.
Cool. Well, it's also some street cred. It's like anybody can do Arch. Arch is great and whatever, but Slackware's like, that's like eating your cereal in the morning without the sugar. Well, that's like no. Let me back that up. Eating your cereal without the sugar is Arch. Eating your cereal without the milk is Slackware. You can do it, but it's very crunchy.
It's crunchy, but it's so much. Just so you guys know, if you want to compare it, it is light years easier to get rocking than like Gen 2 or something like that.
Oh yeah,
like it really isn't that hard to get up and running with Slackware. But yeah,
oh yeah, Gen 2 is a bowl full of wheat. You got to make your own cereal. I mean, that's a whole different thing.
But not like the preformed bowl full of wheat like Weetabix and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like it's an. Or
I'm
like,
talking about you got
like
to climb in your
Wheaties.
tractor. You got to knock it down. You got. I mean, you got work to do.
It's just a tractor and the carburetor is missing. That's all you
Right.
get with Gen 2. And then you got to make your bowl of cereal from that. Previously is posting a repost from last week. We never got to his question last week because we never get to most of these questions.
True.
We end up talking way too long about things that don't matter, like Star Trek and making cereal from a tractor.
So much culture.
Previously asks, it's been a year since I visited the System 76 offices with their super duper secret unveiling of hardware from the future. Have they provided any follow-up? Incredibly excited not only for the custom-made Linux hardware, but also it'll be manufactured in the U.S. Some follow-up. So I did an interview with them. When was that? I did the show with them where we talked about the Intel ME, where they were disabling. I think that was in December, right? Something like that.
Yeah, sounds about right. December-ish. Yeah.
So when I was talking to them then, and a little bit offline, so what came to is their offices, their manufacturing space is getting ramped up. Last I heard, they found manufacturing space, but I don't know if it became like 100% finalized. And I knew that they were moving forward on their designs, but like after they showed them to us, they then went all hush hush, but not like super secret hush hush. More like they don't want to like talk about it too much until the designs were finalized, kind of a thing.
Exactly.
So my understanding from what I got from Carl, the head honcho at System 76, was that the first fruits of that would ship this year. So 2018, we will see custom hardware from System 76, custom cases, laser cut with steel and wood and laser.
I like lasers.
Inlaid things with lasers and all sorts of lasers. There were lasers.
So many lasers.
Yeah, so many lasers. So that's what I understand at this point. Honestly, I'm with you. I really want to see that because I love the idea. I mean, I'm an American. I like things manufactured in America. The blood in my veins is very red. It's very red, and it's
mine's pretty red too.
It's fueled mostly with steak. So I mean, I'm an American. And I like to see that. I like my computer case comes from Denver, Colorado, the foothills of the Rockies. You know, I like to be able to say these.
Basically,
things.
their commercial is going to be like a beer commercial. It has horses running around and whatnot. Various pictures of Colorado. You know, that'd be hilarious. That would actually be awesome. I would recommend that. Parody, man. When in doubt, parody. Just saying.
Wait a minute. We're not that far into the show right now, but now seems like a really good point to say that this show is sponsored in part by System 76. So
with or without horses, but they do have Pop OS. That's cool.
With or without horses, they do Pop OS. The show is powered by the Wild Dog you see on the screen there if you're watching the video version, which is a killer machine. Both Matt and I have renditions of the Wild Dog Pro. Right. Awesome tower. Awesome. But how awesome would that be if it was laser cut in metal in Colorado at the foothill of the Rockies? Like, that just makes it even cooler. And of course, they all ship with Linux. Find out more at system76.com. I really do want that to all happen. I am probably more impatient than anybody outside of System 76 for it to happen. And part of it is that I want to see, and it's not like, take the System 76 aside. We'll just call it company Brand X, right?
Okay. Brand X.
If Brand X comes along and is like, we do Linux, and here's our cases, and they're all open source hardware cases, and we cut them ourselves right here in the country. And then we also doing some extra work, because they also talked about some extra work they were going to be doing to make more of their machines like their boards designed themselves. Wow. And so like they were talking more and more like that. I'm like, now this is amazing. Like that's
some uncharted territory,
right?
I mean, it reminds me of Star Trek the motion picture. Spock is jetpacking into the abyss. You know, I mean, that's what it reminds me of. That's literally, that's what my brain.
They got to go to V'ger. Yeah.
Clearly. Yeah. Everything's. That's I would call the Project V'ger. You know, the V'ger motherboard.
But I mean, then we can point to it. high-end, classy, choice-looking hardware with laser cut everything made only to run Linux.
That would be nice.
So
that would be great.
That's the part that gets me psyched.
Wow.
You know, when we buy phones or hardware from other manufacturers and whatnot, we are resigned to the fact that there's big chunks of it we don't know anything about.
True.
There's stickers over half of the things that say that if we remove the sticker, we'll die and be put in prison in Guantanamo. We don't know what half of the chips do. There's 15 different firmwares and 8 different operating systems running just to boot the damn computer, and we don't know what they do, but they all have their own web servers. And
seriously.
That there are companies out there that are trying to change that makes me so happy.
Yeah, right.
Happy. I don't care who it is. It makes me happy. The fact that it's someone who's been sponsoring this show for so long, extra happy. Because I get to say I made a good choice. Oh man, so cool. All right, moving on from that stuff. Eric Lynch, have you ever tried installing and using Linux on an old PlayStation 2? I've managed to get Black Rhino installed on it, but couldn't do as much as I didn't have a USB keyboard and mouse. Yeah, okay. If you try to put,
okay,
do you have something to say on this?
No, I've heard of it. I just can't. I'm trying to. I did investigate the idea of doing something similar with an old web TV. That didn't work.
Yeah, no.
Not even possible. It's still locked down. But okay, cool. I mean, it sounds interesting.
So we did videos around this back in the old Jupiter Broadcasting days.
Yeah.
Around this exact thing. In fact, if you go to Jupiter Broadcasting's YouTube channel and sort the videos that Jupiter Broadcasting made by popularity, the most popular thing is just me saying Linux sucks. That's the most popular thing Jupiter Broadcasting ever made by like 100 times. But the next 2 videos after that are the most popular after that are putting Linux on a PlayStation 2. Because when the PlayStation 2 came out and you could do that, it was like, okay, well, we have to do that. And every Linux nerd was like, well, if I can get one, I want to do that. Here's the thing. If you get it working, few things to remember. 1, it's going to be a pain in the ass. And 2, it's going to be slower than molasses coming out of a dog's hiney. It is so slow. It's
PlayStation 2. I mean,
buggy. It is not a fun experience. If you want to have like a little, like you get way more speed from a first generation Raspberry Pi than you do from a PlayStation 2 running Linux. And I know that the PlayStation 2 should be way more capable than that. And there are many reasons for the limitations. It's just the way it is. Right. It sucks. It's a sucky experience.
I think the one big takeaway we have with this is that Brian is more popular than a Linux than PlayStation 2. I mean, I think that's kind of cool, right? I mean, that's something to celebrate.
I completely agree. I love making those kinds of comparisons.
That's so important. You've achieved success, my friend.
I've achieved success.
Wow.
Tilly's ex-boyfriend, also known as Nate the Sneak, over on Twitter asks, "Dear beautiful people," he's talking to us.
Good start.
What is the best desktop for a convertible lap? Okay, he's asking for desktop environment. I was thinking desktop computer first. Okay, what's the best desktop environment for a convertible laptop that is actually pleasant to use in tablet mode?
God, I don't know. I mean, I would
no,
probably something. I guess GNOME, maybe. Yeah, I mean, something with big buttons.
The answer is GNOME. Yeah. There's no question here. The answer is unequivocally GNOME, whether you like GNOME or not. KDE has a whole lot of like convergency things. I found it to be buggy as all get out last time I tried to do something like this. Using it as a touchscreen experience has some really pleasant things and some just horrors, and it makes me want to punch it and stab it. GNOME has some quirks and some flaws with the touchscreen experience, but overall is highly usable with your finger. By just jabbing it, like it works pretty well. As long as you're mostly using like stock GTK3 applications, then everything scales well, and you can set the scaling big so the buttons are nice and big and chunky and they still look good. That's the way to go. I mean, it just really is. Unless while you're in that convertible mode, you're okay with understanding that when you click on something by tapping it with your finger, it might not launch exactly what you want. You could run like Mate or XFCE or LXDE or one of those other lightweight desktops, but you're going to end up tapping the menu items 2 or 3 times before you get it just right. But GNOME, everything's big enough for the most part. It works pretty well.
Honestly, I think basically anything with chunky buttons, that's really what you're looking for. As long as it's chunky, and it has buttons, you're good to go. GNOME being one of them. It's very chunky.
And honestly, one that works pretty doggone well is Elementary. I bet. Because it's, and I don't know that they necessarily custom tailored it for that, but it has a nice big dock. The little launcher menu they've got is, the icons are pretty big. If you scale everything well, it looks actually fine. Like it's not too shabby.
Definitely don't think it was the focus, but I'm not surprised. It does everything I need to do it well.
It does. Yeah. It works pretty doggone well.
Chunky buttons, guys.
Julian or Julian, I'm not sure which. Sorry for pronouncing it wrong at least one time. You talked about Haiku, etc. I did talk about Haiku, etc. You got me. What are your thoughts on ReactOS? And Matt, go.
Do
you want me to take this one?
It's a thing. It's like you should probably check it out. I don't really understand. You'll
never really look at it by going to a search engine and look at ReactOS.
No, I know generally what it is. I don't really get it. Like what the goal would be to use it. Like, I mean, some operating systems like, okay, I'm clearly going to use it for this. I don't really, yeah. And I'm going to search that now just to see if there's been any updates since I've last looked.
I mean, ReactOS is going along, but honestly, I don't know. I think that's I'm with Matt on this one. I don't know that I can think of a use case for using ReactOS over a slimmed down Linux desktop with an up-to-date Wine. I don't know. Because ReactOS, for those who don't know, ReactOS is basically there to provide an operating system that's an open source replacement for Windows, right? And I get that. There's a real value to that sort of thing. I mean, if Windows were all open source and free software, I would at least consider using it. I don't think I would, because I prefer the other design methodologies of like Unix-styled systems, but it's more valuable that way. But realistically, I'm going to get all the same benefit if I'm running Wine on top of a lightweight Linux distribution. Plus, then I can run all those Linux applications that I want to be running on top of that for the times when the Windows applications won't cut it, which actually happens a fair bit. And so I don't see the value of ReactOS.
That was my whole thing, is comparing it with Wine. It's like, okay, so their features include 9 million lines of code. I mean, I don't really, what is that doing for me? Styles. Okay. It looks like something from 1998. So I don't really see what the value is. I think it's admirable. Yes. I think it's nice that they're doing it, but I'm not able to get myself. It's kind of like,
I can't think of a use case for it for me or anyone else. And that
I really can't. That's not to say one couldn't happen, but
yes, exactly. There's very possible that someone's listening to the show going, I use it and I use it for this purpose and it works great. I just can't think of it. Like Haiku or ArcaOS or FreeBSD. I mean, there's a lot of great operating systems out there that are open source and free software and the like, and they have value. Even if I don't use them day to day, I can think of why I would, but not that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, hey, hang on, this just in, they're still in alpha. It's kind of like, and you compare that to other comparables that have made huge leaps and bounds. It's like, I don't care if you have 1,000 developers or whatever it may be. I don't really understand what they're doing it for. If there's a specific singular task that they're going to do that no one else is going to, okay, then I get it. But literally the only thing that's changed since the last time I looked at is the webpage that I can see visually. I mean, as far as like what it can do, like
I'm sure it's being updated, but I
there's a million lines of code. That's great, but I think from a meaningful point of view, so maybe they need to spend some time educating people. Yeah. Here's why you would use it. Here's what you would do with it. Because I don't want to disparage the effort. I just need to better understand what its value is, because I'm not clicking with that.
But here's the thing. I bet you anything. So that you and I, if we sat down, just the two of us for a weekend, took a base Linux distro, Debian, Ubuntu, Elementary, anything, doesn't really even matter, put a really simple Mate or XFCE desktop on it, themed it to look like Windows 2000, put the latest version of Wine 3.0 that just came out, was it last week, on there, and then removed tons of the Linux applications and just installed open source Windows apps like Firefox for Windows and Notepad++ and things like that, and then released it as like, hey, this is like Windows but open source, we would probably immediately get more traction than ReactOS has gotten.
That's so sad, but it's true. It's funny true. Because it's true. Yeah,
and you and I could, and like anyone listening to this show could do the exact same thing. And but I don't see the value of doing so. Like we could, and it would be a funky project to say,
it would be weird.
Every application I'm running other than the desktop environment is a Windows binary on my Linux desktop. Like you could totally do that. I just don't know why you would. I just can't think of the reason for it. I mean, Wine is valuable, like for games especially. Wine's valuable, but I don't get it.
Or people that require those crazy kids and their legacy apps. Cool.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's totally cool. All right, Lucy Vincent over on Twitter asks, how do you maintain a free and open source software ecosystem when your friends are so tied into so many non-free services like Discord and Skype and all that garbage? Lucy didn't say garbage. That was my addition. As soon as you say the word Skype, I add in garbage after
garbage.
How can I get my friends to be... How can I get my friends to be GNU plus friends?
Oh, that's actually really clever. I
realized the irony of posting this on Twitter and not Mastodon. So this comes up actually a fair bit. I mean, we get asked questions like this every single week because it's the pain point that every freedom-thumping person in the world feels every single day. Yep. Like you mentioned Skype. Skype's a good example. Right. Skype isn't technically available for Linux. It runs like balls. It runs awful. So I've had a couple of interviews. If you go back, I did an interview with MC Frontalot, right? Which was so cool because it's MC friggin' Frontalot. And if you don't know who Frontalot is, look him up. He's the nerdcore guy. He's really, really cool. Yeah. And we did this interview. His video froze like 3 seconds into the video, so it's just him for the whole thing, and the audio keeps working. I've done like 3 other interviews that have had to be via Skype because the person I was interviewing wants to use Skype, and every single one within the first 2 minutes it's just frozen.
Well, and I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again because the first thing to understand is you are never going to get someone to install and use another application if they're in bed with the one they're using. So Skype's going to happen. That's going to happen.
You're right.
Find whatever GNU-friendly WebRTC option that is web-based that works in a browser you can find. I'll let you guys figure out what you want to use. I use
Peer.in.
Peer.in's great. I use that because it's reliable. Yep. You send them a link in their Skype. Say, hey, here you go. My video's doing weird stuff today. Just use this. Okay, they'll click it. It opens. All of a sudden, it detects their webcam and their mic, and they're like, "Oh, okay." And that's the end of the discussion. It's very simple. They don't have to stop using Skype. You just got to stop sending video in it. Seriously. I mean, that's what I do. Because it's just logical. Because otherwise, you have to find a problem to solve or some pain point that they give a rip about. People are inherently lazy. They want, there's a reason why people like really cushy soft couches and fluffy, memory top beds and all that. We're soft panty wastes. That's just our nature. That's what humans are. So we're not Klingons. Klingons use Linux.
Not.
Well, they probably use BSD actually, but whatever. They're probably
suicide Linux. Where if you type the wrong command, it all deletes it. It just RMs the whole thing.
And your file system goes to Stovacore. But once you that's actually needs to be a t-shirt. But that should be
a t-shirt. Get on that, Hartley.
Yeah, right. Seriously. But yeah, I think that if you can't solve problems for them, just use the tools that they're already using, but send them to something you like to use instead, or are willing to use. And a Peer.in is a good option. There's other WebRTC solutions as well. That's fine. Whatever. So.
Right.
You get the general gist of it. Point is good luck with that.
Yes. Good luck with that, indeed. Good luck with that. I don't know, man. Some days I wake up all optimistic. I'm gonna convert the world, and some things I'll do will oddly work to convert people. Like the Linux Sucks series converted I don't know how many thousands of people to Linux, and which is
it was
stupid
fun.
and weird.
Introduce them to Linux. That's I think part of it too. It's a lot of it. Not just even if they already heard of it. You did a disarming way of introducing them to an idea of, hey, this is cool. Check out what I'm doing. Check out this is funny. We're fun people. We're not all serious.
It's fun to be here.
Yeah.
This is a place you want to be. It's
Clemens.
Hard. Because if I go to someone, exactly. It always comes back to Twain for me. If you go up to most people and are like, I need you to switch your application you're using to support me supporting freedom and open sourciness, most people, their eyes glaze over and they don't care about what we want, and that sucks. But if we show them how much fun we're having just continually, and then when they want to use their proprietary stuff, things just kind of don't work as well sometimes, and then people get kind of bummed out. Over time they learn, and then they'll slowly start doing the fun stuff. That's the only really good solution I've got, other than apparently doing a big dog and pony show where you tell them that everything sucks. Apparently those are the two options that
works too. I look at it as a comparison between, like, you look at cars. It's like you have a choice between cars. You can have a car that runs on coal, Prius, or you can, because basically you're just anyway, that aside, or you can have a really cool diesel converted car that smells like French fries and chicken. That's a no-brainer for me. I'm going to run it on.
I want the French fries.
It smells like
chicken.
Food, right?
Absolutely.
So it's all about the presentation of a thing.
And if it could be air cooled, more is the better.
It just recirculates the smell back in your car.
Stick shift diesel air cooled vehicle.
Right? Yes.
Way of the future.
There you go.
Oh yeah. Dorian./ asks, what can't Linux do that Windows or Mac can? This is a common question I'd like to list out and address, whether it be software or hardware related. What is it that we can't do on Linux that Windows or Mac can do? What can't we do?
Generally vendor lock-in stuff, whether that is maybe you've got some oddball piece of hardware that works on Windows because they've, the cabal with Mr. Burns and Count Chocula got together and came up with some crazy backwards thing. Or maybe it's a legacy application that you're missing that isn't available, even in Wine. Gamers, it's all want stuff, in my opinion, mostly.
That's the same as saying, like, what can you do on a Commodore 64 that you can't do in Windows Vista? Like, well, you can run the Commodore peripherals and applications and whatnot that you ran on your Commodore 64 that don't work on Vista. It's the same. As soon as you move platforms or connector types, stuff like that comes up. I feel like that's the same difference. So I honestly can't think of anything well, one interesting thing you can do on Linux that you can't do on Windows is in Windows, when you have a hardware compatibility issue, yes, you can revert back to a previous state, but you may be that previous state may be, in fact, putting you at risk because that may have been related to a security fix. Whereas with Linux, you have multiple kernels that are often LTS or have security coming in to where you might have better hardware compatibility, but you're not missing out on that security benefit. That's just one example. You have control. You can fix stuff in Linux that you can't fix in Windows. So for me, I see it as quite the reverse. I can monkey with anything and make it work, really. Well, do you have Windows up and running currently anywhere
on a VM? I like to laugh at it. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Other than that virtual machine, when was the last time you really had Windows running on one of your machines?
I think it was a netbook and it was Windows 7. I wiped it after about 2 weeks. I was just like,
I remember I got
starter
an
Asus
EEE netbook that came with, I think, XP or XP Media Edition or something like that, and I wiped it about a week later. I got it and I wanted to play with it and see how it was, and I always intended to put Linux on it, but I wanted to see how it was with Windows, and then I wiped it, put Linux on it, and it was great. But that was the last time I was really running Windows too. And there's nothing I yearn for. Like, I play games all the time under Linux. I don't know what I need. Video production? No, apparently I don't need that. By presentations? Well, considering that the presentations I get viewed about 1 million more times than the people that get up there with a MacBook and do presentations, apparently you don't need a Mac or a Windows PC to do presentations. So I don't think there is anything.
Well, one thing people point to, and I actually saw it come up in the chat room, is battery life. And I would argue that, let me put it this way. Chromebooks, okay? You want to talk battery life? They destroy Windows.
Yes.
So
where is that?
So obviously it is doable, right?
This laptop is terrible. This is an Acer Chromebook. It's an R15. I got it as a review unit because I did a review like a year and a half ago on this. But it gets, I swear to God, like 8 hours of battery life. And this thing cost like $150. It's a cheapo laptop, but crazy, like all day battery life.
I got one. It's got 12 downstairs. It's a relatively new one, and it's
crazy.
For what I needed to do, it does fine. Now, pointing back to the Linux side of things, I go back to what I said earlier. TLP, look at your power top settings. You can get, I'd say 95% there as far as battery life. The reason why you see that with Windows is because, again, Count Chocula and Mr. Burns and the Cabal are getting together, making sure that works a certain way with that specific release of Windows. Try it with an older release and see how that works out for you. It might be different. You might be relying on a different driver. There's a lot of variables. You have no control over it.
You have none.
A lot of times it's an applet that you have no idea what it's doing in the background. And it's actually like brainwashing you. You don't know. I mean, I'm just saying.
You're just saying. Cubicle Nate asks, I recently watched, this is going back in time. I recently watched your interview with Richard Stallman from the 200th episode of the Linux Action Show.
Oh, wow. Negative in the freedom dimension.
Negative in the freedom dimension, baby. How did you get another interview with him after that? All right.
That sounds good.
So at this point, see, I've done a couple of videos with Richard.
That's true.
Richard actually appeared in a Linux Sucks 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah, he was Brian. Yes. Yeah, that was awesome.
That was awesome.
That was very very Apple-esque and IBM.
He's a fun guy. And then I've done a couple interviews with him, and then he did a panel show. You were on that one, I think.
Might have been.
This was like 2 years ago, maybe. I can't remember.
Oh,
yeah.
One
on the
no, I
need
missed
for
that.
compromise
I was invited,
in
but I
free
missed
software. Yes, that's right. Anyway, so Richard's done a couple of them, and Richard and I communicate in spurts fairly regularly. The thing is, even when Richard and I do an interview and I disagree with Richard, he and I are not really that far apart on anything. Like realistically, like if you go way back in time to the first time I interviewed Richard Stallman, which was on an old Linux Action Show, it looks like he and I are light years apart. But the reality is he and I at that point were like pretty much mostly on the same page. We differed in how to get from point A to point B. That was where our big difference came in.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a line drawn in the sand.
There was a line.
I mean, it was respectful, but there was some there was definitely some there.
And you know what? The line, still the same line.
But it was respectful. Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
But you both said it like it is. You both told it like it is. There was no false courtesy nonsense. It was very
there's never false courtesy with Stallman. Oh my God, no. He won't stand for that.
But, whatever.
Oh yeah, he'll pause for pasta.
Always pause for pasta.
But so honestly, it was never really a concern about how do I get Richard Stallman. I don't need to apologize to Richard.
No.
I never did anything like that. He never apologizes to me.
He's not sorry. You're not sorry. Why apologize?
No, we're just two stubborn, highly opinionated guys. And we both approach things in crazy different ways. We present ourselves differently. We approach things differently. We think about things differently. But we were basically, as far as software freedom goes, like 99.7% on the same page. And so really that's all. And I think that's good. Most of the arguing in the free software world between people like, honestly, like even Linus Torvalds, Richard Stallman, myself, a few other people, any of those disagreements are all over the details. They're all over technicalities. Like everyone is like, yes, open source. What do we call it? I want to make it free software. I want to call it open source plus this. Like, no, well, we're all kind of thinking the same thing. We're just talking about branding differences now. It's like, there's really not that big a difference. There really isn't. Anyway.
Linus always kind of struck me as like a bipolar Quaalude, which seems kind of weird, but he's really passionate about things when they don't work, but otherwise he doesn't really care. Like I saw him in a presentation where he's just like, I don't really whatever. And then he's like, oh wait, that is the stupidest patch. Beep, 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 beep. Yeah. So I mean, he kind of runs hot and cold.
That. I love it when he gets all feisty about stuff. Oh my God.
Right?
It is so much. I have to fight myself to not make my my Linux news show on Tuesdays just me reading stuff he posts to the mailing list for the Linux kernel, because so much of it is so good. Like last week's I read a little bit. There was like originally I had like 5 different emails I wanted to read because he just laid into people and it was awesome. He's awesome. Unstoppable. He's a force of nature.
He really is. Yeah, he's a hurricane.
I like that guy. All right, let's move over to Mastodon because Mastodon deserves some love. All right. Dreams Void asks, I want to get a new job that doesn't bore me or make me feel like crap. That is a really good goal, man. Yeah. What area of Linux do you think I should go into? Holy moly, that's a big topic.
That's not big at all.
What do you want to go into, man? Well, Matt,
I guess you got to
go into?
First of all, it's like, okay, so clearly Linux in some capacity, voided thing, interests you. So now you have to determine what about Linux interests you. Like, for example, myself, I would rather, eat my desk than code. I absolutely cannot even. It makes the mere idea of it makes me want to play in traffic. I can't stand it. My brain's not wired that way. Instead, I like doing this with my hands and yapping a lot. That's more my style. So for me, that would be what I do now. In your case, maybe you're into the coding end of it. Maybe you really admire fixing stuff for people, administering a thing, seeing the benefit of something being patched, upgraded, maintained. You got to kind of look at the different roles. Maybe you want to get into DevOps and kind of blur the lines a little there. Personally, I would rather play in traffic, probably play on the freeway than that one.
DevOps.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, it sounds cool. It makes you sound like a Cylon or something, but it's really just a buzzword like Web 2.0 or security.
When was the last time? When was the last time you heard someone go around and go, well, I'm really interested in Web 2.0 technologies? DevOps
only if it has the rounded corners. Otherwise, it's not really Web 2.0.
It's not. Okay, if you are saying you're into DevOps right now is a good way to get yourself a really boring job. It's a really, really good way to do that.
It's also a very hireable place too, though.
It's very hireable. It's nothing new. How do I say this without
here's the
insulting
solution.
everyone?
If it's going to bore you to the point of wanting to beat your face into a desk, you're going to always be working and you'll probably be paid comfortably. If it's something that's really exciting or awesome, you're probably going to be clawing your way up the ladder for a while. That's been my experience as far as watching kind of the grand scheme of things. Maybe the chat room has a different view of it. I think I'm probably right. That's just my theory. Personally, being responsible for other people's stuff makes me cringe. I don't want to do it. That's my overall why I don't do IT stuff anymore. I
get that.
It just makes me absolutely curdle. I can't do it.
I like the pick something that's really, really wicked specific and hard that no one else wants to do.
And you'll specialize, you'll make bank.
If you'll make wicked bank, like let's say you want to be a COBOL developer. Oh man. I mean, hard work because half the time you're just editing really garbage COBOL code. And I'm not saying all COBOL code is garbage, but there's a lot of garbage code out there, and
that's really
it needs to be maintained, and it's not documented well, and they need someone, and they'll pay you really well for it. It's like that in the Linux space too.
Also, relocation depending on where you live. If you live in the northwest part of the country, Northern California through Oregon and Washington, you can be drunk and come into work, and they still to probably give you a raise. I mean, it's so easy to get work in that.
Especially if you're in DevOps.
Right, yeah. It helps if you dress like a Stallman, though. No, it's, I think that you just you're going to have to kind of decide money, passion, finding a balance between the two. It's going to be tough. You got to decide what about Linux excites you and kind of go that direction, and also make sure you're going to get paid appropriately for it.
Yes. So. Demand currencies. I'm a big fan of that.
Currency helps. Paying your mortgage is kind of a thing.
Yeah. I like to pay the rent or the mortgage occasionally.
Pay the bills.
Once every 7 or 8 months, pay that. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Right.
Don't fear the keyboard asks probably the most important question of the day. How much bash would a bash beaver bash if a bash beaver could bash bash?
I'm all for advocating. I'm not going to say that.
Don't dodge the question here, Matt. Answer the question.
We're talking about bashing beavers here, so
how much bash would a bash beaver bash if a bash beaver could bash bash?
Probably bash.
Probably Bash. That's what I
Maybe
was
8,
thinking, too.
probably 8. I don't know. We're bashing beavers here. I have no idea what we're talking.
You were
It's kind of like
right with
clubbing
Bash.
seals, I guess. I don't know, but anyway, it sounds horribly violent or incredibly inappropriate. It depends on which way you want to go with it.
10
At any
out of
rate,
10 would Bash again. Distro Junkie asks, my 13-year-old son and I like to build computers together. Good on ya.
Nice. I
And
love
over
that.
the
I love
last
seeing
year
that.
and a half have pretty much standardized on Intel i3 processors. That's
Okay.
fair. That's okay.
Sure,
You know, it's
why not?
nice. Good level.
Sure.
We decided to abandon Intel and switch to AMD due to recent revelations. Understand. I get it.
Cool.
Are we being myopic, petty, or prudent?
So my AMD knowledge is a bit dated. We're talking like Athlon era, so bear with me. I'm a little behind the times. That being said, historically,
you're pre-Ryzen, definitely.
yeah, oh god, I think on the desktop AMD is doing awesome stuff. I think that's amazing as hell. I know absolutely no idea what the hell they're doing on the mobile front as far as laptops and whatnot. Historically, in the past, I want to really emphasize this. In the past, AMD and laptops it made garbage look awesome. So it was just crap. So, you know, if they've gotten to the level they've got with desktops, which on desktops they've done really well, if they've got that in laptops to where they've achieved something above garbage, then awesome. You know, I think that's great. But yeah, historically, yeah. And again, that's old knowledge, old know-how. I don't even read anything on AMD. I know they have something they call, you know, something about rising bread or rising from the dead or whatever the hell they call it. Everything. I don't know. Whatever. They're doing stuff. It's great.
That's the technology show we have here. Ryzen, is that the bread? Are we talking about bread? I love bread. Is this a bagel show? Like, no.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
So,
oh my.
Are you
send your hate mail too?
Prudent? Are you being myopic, petty, or prudent? Honestly,
being concerned is always prudent. If you're not, you know, I think being cautious is always prudent. I think do your homework and investigate something before you make a decision is prudent. If you make a snap decision like I just did, that would be being a jerk and being, you know, I guess, you know, kind of a butthead. So
here's what I think. I think you are being all three. You are being myopic, petty, and prudent. The reality is a lot of the things that are being talked about do affect both AMD and Intel processors.
Yeah.
Not all.
Yeah.
Also, some of the things that affect Intel-only processors are being worked around in software with detriments, but are being worked around. Not all, but some. And with
and Linus approves. He's super excited about it. So,
yes,
yeah, he's got lots of colorful words for it.
Clearly,
so, yeah.
he said all sorts of lovely things about Intel lately.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is, we had I had Paul from over at Pogo on a show a couple of weeks back talking about this, because what I wanted to know was what the roadmap looked like for Intel processors.
Right.
And he came on and he was talking about it because they work really closely with Intel and they get to get kind of the sneak peek of everything. And so he could tell me some things. And what it looked like was even the next iteration of Intel processors, those flaws are all still there. Those security holes are all still there because those were already, those are already in the development pipeline so far along before this became really public, even though Intel already knew about it, but it was already public. And then, well, they just got to keep going through. So they might be fixed in the ones after that. And then if you're worried about the IME stuff, well, then you really need to go with a manufacturer that can disable it or be willing to work on that really hard yourself to try and disable it, depending on which kind of boards you got. It's not petty.
That's tough.
But it is petty. It's not myopic, but it is myopic. And it is definitely prudent to at least be worrying about it. There's no good answer is the problem, because there are security concerns on the AMD Ryzen side as well. You can't there's no silver bullet fix. So if there was a silver bullet fix, I would tell everyone go buy an AMD processor right now.
Well, and here's the thing we haven't talked about yet, and I don't think and this is why I always laugh at security stuff in general, is, okay, so everybody floats over to AMD, and that's all awesome. And Intel's eventually, over the course of however many years, they pull their heads out of their butts, gets it fixed. And so you put all your money into an AMD thing, and then 2 months later, oh, hey, there's this whole unrelated thing, very much like what happened to Intel, that we just discovered in AMD, but don't worry, you just bought a brand new.
Exactly.
You know, you're chasing your tail. So, you know, I honestly, I just do what I got to do as far as keeping myself secure. I keep things patched and I don't sweat it. That's really all you can do is patch your stuff, run the appropriate kernel, and just roll with the punches. You know, if you're really that worried about it, you can buy accordingly. But myself, I just,
hard.
you know,
it's hard. there's not a good answer at the moment. So, the best you can do is do your best. Honestly, I don't see any problem going the AMD route, going the Ryzen route right now. If your desktops, totally fine.
But except that there's still an open-ended. It's a little bit like when a restaurant gets some sort of a scare with E. coli or whatever the hell, and after they resolve that, that is the place you want to eat from now on, because they are
good for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it is now safe to eat at Chipotle.
Yeah.
You go to Chipotle right now. Chipotle is going to be good for like another 3 or 4 months. They're going to be the cleanest place still to eat for a while.
Yeah. You can eat off the porcelain in the bathrooms. It's great. I mean, you'll love it. You probably don't want to do that. Don't take that as a recommendation.
I don't even want to go into a Chipotle bathroom.
Oh, that was a visual. Okay.
Here's the interesting thing. There was someone asked a question online. I can't remember what. I think it was probably on Twitter or something like that, asking kind of tongue in cheek, with all these security exploits, Meltdown and Spectre, what about FreeDOS, the GNU licensed DOS clone? And the main guy, Jim Hall behind FreeDOS, quickly gets back to me. He's like, look, no problems with FreeDOS because it's single tasking, so you're fine.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you're really worried about it, whatever processor you're running, just install FreeDOS and you're good to go.
Seriously, yeah. No, I think that's just it. Is you got to go with what your comfort is. If you're really concerned about it, then by all means go AMD. But at the same time, don't let it be your only reason for switching one direction or another. I mean, consider all the angles and consider the fact that there was a time I wrote an article that I mentioned that at some point we're going to start seeing exploits on smartphones. I was called out so many times. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. That could never happen. Guess what? It does. So you never know.
Oh, I don't.
Or use FreeDOS.
Or just use FreeDOS. Or just go back to an old system where all the exploits are so well known and no one cares that you're fine.
Like Windows.
Well, no, I think go older than that. I mean, if you install, like, let's say an old Mac System 6 and put it on the internet, are you going to get infected with anything? No, you're not, because even if there are any exploits, no one's using them right now.
You want to be really secure. Get yourself a copy of Windows XP and run IE6, because that is the most. And make sure ActiveX is installed and ready to go.
That's always the best.
That's security, man.
That's security in a nutshell.
Firewalls.
Hacker9 over on Mastodon. Oh, is a big question. Here we go. I just realized that every week I look forward to sitting at my computer waiting on Linux Thursday to start. Nice.
Woo, good to hear.
To start a question. I haven't been this excited about a show since the Computer Chronicles when I was a kid.
I read that. Yeah, that was awesome.
I don't even get this excited for Vikings or other regular TV shows. So thank you, Brian and Matt. You guys rock. Like, seriously. In fact, this morning I'm upping my Patreon donation to both of you. Yeah, it turns out that's not a question. That was just a really fun thing for me to read out loud.
I was checking that out today. I was like, oh, wow.
It's awesome. Almost like I planned on reading that one and pretending like it was a question. I liked that one.
Sneaky.
Distro Junkie has an actual question. RMS. Ooh. Hi, we got a hypothetical, Matt.
Okay.
Hypotheticals are always a good way to round out a show. Richard Stallman and Linus Torvalds accidentally walk into a biker bar together.
Oh, God.
Question is a two-parter. The first is, do either of them have the cojones to stay? And if so, what do they order to drink?
I have no idea what Stallman would order, but I know that
very specifically, this is a hardcore. We're talking beyond Sons of Anarchy here, full on biker bar.
You put a proper motorcycle coat on or jacket on Stallman and set him down on a bar stool. Turn your back to him. He's already blended in.
That's what I thought too.
It's obvious.
I think he's fine there.
Linus is going to stand out a little bit. He's got the glasses going on. He's a little cut. He looks like us. It's kind of scary.
Kind of does, right?
I'm going to get passed around like a bar rag in a place like that. So yeah, that's bad. That happened.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Matt's going to get passed around like a bar rag. Here's the interesting bit. I think probably so. Linus, I believe, is kind of into sports cars. Like that's kind of a thing for him.
True.
So he likes the fast cars. Whereas Richard Stallman, I don't even know if he drives. So,
but he's walking into the bar, so they have no idea what he arrived in.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Let's say that the city municipal transit drops off Richard Stallman and Linus Torvalds outside of the most notorious biker bar in Oakland, California. Drops them off. They walk on in. Everyone's decked out with leather, except these two. They're wearing, just whatever conference free software swag shirts with herds and whatnot on it that they've got. Do they stay? I think they do. Because I think
Stallman would. Yeah, Stallman wouldn't care. First of all, it looks like he's got patched in by the GNU crew, so he's good to go. Linus, I don't know.
I think Stallman would stay and give them a hard time about their menu because they don't have the things he likes to eat on it.
Right.
I think that's what would happen.
Kicks the guy out of the kitchen, cooks some pasta.
Linus, on the other hand, I think would just sit down and order whatever beer was on tap. I think that's how it would go. And then I think Linus would get out of there quickly. Yeah. And I think Stallman would overstay his welcome.
Yep.
He would stay there past closing.
And probably convert a few people along the way.
I should hope so.
I'm telling you, man.
This episode is brought to you in part by Pogo Linux. Hey, speaking of servers, they got AMD Epic rack mount servers. You want some AMD servers? They got your AMD servers right here. Over there, look at this. Oh, man, the Atlas 1288RT, a 1U unit that can handle up to 4 terabytes of RAM. That's the equivalent of 1.21 gigawatts in RAM terms. I'm pretty sure you get to travel back in time once you have 4 terabytes of RAM.
Pretty sure you do.
AMD Epic 7000 processors. Oh, my God. I want a 1U unit with 4 terabytes of RAM.
That's when you know you can finally open up all the tabs in your browser.
Are you seeing it? This has 10 hot swappable drive bays. I want 10 hot swappable drive bays.
Right?
Ooh. You can choose your OS drive. Oh, man, I love this. You can ship that with CentOS, Ubuntu, Scientific, OpenSUSE, RHEL, the whole works, because that's what Pogo Linux does. PogoLinux.com. Those guys are awesome. I love my sponsors
that is so great.
much. I love that I get that. I love that these companies exist. I love that. So cool. Anyway, Matt, what's happening in your neck of the woods? What's going on in Matt Town? I want to know about it.
Got some stuff coming out on freedompenguin.com as always, and that is actually going to be coming out here in the probably next few hours, actually. Additionally, Patreon/freedompenguin. You want to do some stuff there. There's going to be some changes coming up. Some stuff staying the same, some stuff being added and tweaked, so you want to check that out. Patreon/freedompenguin. That'd be kind of a twist. I can't URL today.
Look at all these articles you got over at freedompenguin.com. These are killer.
Joe kind of took over, which is totally fine.
That's totally fine. Over at Easy Linux.
Easy.
I love Easy Linux.
What the bike is up in the place to be.
And I saw you bought a hat from me, my friend.
I did, yes.
Check this out. Here's the hat. What color did you get?
I went with khaki. I went khaki just because it's the one color I don't have. I have a lot of black. And fun thing, black hats tend to look dirty really quick. They tend to, especially with the white pants.
Yeah.
So I went khaki. I wanted to kind of match it up or mix it up.
You went with the darker khaki? I think there's two.
Yeah.
The lighter khaki is a little more ladylike. Yeah. I've got the dark khaki one
actually
myself.
The one I ordered. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got the dark khaki one myself. Oh, and we now have Linux Sucks cups. We got Linux Sucks cups. If you go to lunduke.com and you click on the store, we got cups that just say Linux Sucks on them.
You too can have a cup of suck, or Linux in this case.
I want to thank everyone who's been picking up shirts and hats and cups and everything like that, and copies of my book and whatnot. It helps to promote the show, because then you're walking around and you're like, whoa, you've got a shirt that says Linux is badass on it and Linux sucks on it. That's a weird thing to have. And then conversations ensue, and this helps Linux. This helps the show. And I have 3 fingers up, and I've only said. And I'll do 5 now. And this helps you make friends. The ladies love it. Right. When you go up to a lady and you're like, "Hey, lady," and you're wearing this shirt right here that has the source code for the main function for Linux 0.01, and they see that on you, oh man, they cannot resist.
They just melt.
Yeah, they melt like butter. All right. I want to thank everyone for hanging out. I want to thank everyone for supporting the show. I want to thank the sponsors. I want to thank all y'all's crazy people. This has been fantastic. Now, so we've got the audio podcast feed rocking now. we now have as many people subscribing to the audio podcast as watch this over on the YouTube as well.
Well, I can only imagine this in audio only. That must be amusing.
It is, but we've now got so like if this show gets, say 5,000 or so views over on YouTube, we're also getting around that number on the audio podcast feed. Totally blew me away. I was not expecting that level. I think there was like a pent up demand. So there was like a couple thousand of people going, where's my feed? Where's my feed? And now they're all jumping on top of it. And they just went into it like crazy. That's awesome. So welcome everybody. We're still not up on iTunes yet because of friggin' Apple, but we're on other places. So that's all working out. Fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Good stuff.
Fantastic. This is an end to an awfully good week. Well, I guess I'll be back tomorrow, but I'm talking about UFOs tomorrow. It's not really Linuxy. If you haven't yet, the Lunduke Files is all about aliens and stuff. Started last Friday. Next episode's tomorrow. Good reception of that one so far too, even though it's a little bit outside of my normal wheelhouse, but it's working. But anyway, thank you everyone for hanging out. How many people are watching the show with us today? How many people? Goodness. How many people we got? I got about 300 some odd people watching the show today. Not too shabby, not too shabby at any one given time. You know what I've noticed? People will come in and go down. So last week's was about 1,500, 1,600, something like that in total. Watch the live stream. It'll probably be about the same this week. Usually when all is settled, right around there. And I love that. I love that. We get to sit down and do a live show in front of like 1,000 people every week. It's crazy. Awesome. It's awesome that you guys tune in. If you want to tune in, subscribe to the YouTube channel. At some point, I might move this over to Twitch or my own streaming server or something. But right now, it's over on YouTube because A, I'm Poe, and B, I'm lazy. So is both A and B as the reasons right there.
Hey, OPM, other people's money. Let YouTube spend it.
dollar bills, y'all. Matthew,
yes,
talk us out with your sweet, sweet voice with just one word.
Bar rag. I'm a bar rag. Oh God,
is that really one word?
Sure.
Is it hyphenated? Is it like bar dash rag?
Yes, clearly. I'm a hyphenated rag. Wow.
Someone needs to make a little application that does nothing called bar rag, so then we can do kill all bar rags.
And it's it's got the physics, so you can drag it around.
Yeah, it's basically like X-Eyes, except it's a bar rag, and it has your voice going.
There was a stick figure game that my nephew used to play with when he was a little kid. Same thing, just you'd be able to drag it around, you could bounce them off of walls and stuff. That would be cool with a bar rag.
Bar rag.